Imagine a vibrant discussion between people that includes both openness and critical thought in the pursuit of truth. The Purchasing Truth podcast is an experience, a journey, an exploration of the impact that negative messages in politics and the media have on our families, community, society, and nation. Join your hosts, Bill Stierle and Tom to discover new concepts and language strategies that will reveal effective ways of establishing truth. This podcast series will tackle current events, leadership challenges, healthcare confusion, integrity in business, and many other areas that affect us all. Gain clarity and understanding of the various truth perspectives. Welcome to Purchasing Truth.
Welcome back to Purchasing Truth, everyone. I'm Tom, along with your host, Bill Stierle. And, Bill, we touched a little bit last episode about team and, the dynamics of the sort of team sports, but in our politics as well, it really is behaving more like a team sport than anything else, where Republicans and Democrats are all, well, especially Republicans, are really dispensing with truth for the sake of the team. And there's a lot of unhealthy things going on there. And I think we also talked about the line of where ethics and and a criminal act, those lines are getting moved so much closer together, aren't they?
Yeah, they are. One of the biggest challenges with identity politics and how a team mindset works is you forget that you're not rooting for the game. You're not doing what's best for America. You're only doing what's best for your team. And I think I remember one time Paul Ryan, was talking in this way of, I'll do anything I can to keep Hillary Clinton from getting elected. Well, if it's not right for America, isn't that identity? It's like, no, it's, but it was his version of America that he was advocating for. It's his mindset around that. And, it's just, you got to wonder when that guy's going to pop back up again, right? When is it going to be safe for him to come back? Because he's coming back.
Oh, I'm sure he's coming back. He's too young to not come back. Yeah, and is now a much older politician, but Mitch McConnell, who's toward the end of his career, has been guilty of the same thing, standing in front of the microphone at Capitol Hill saying, our entire purpose as Republicans is to deny Barack Obama a second term, right, back in 2010, 2011. And I'm just like, really? That's what you were sent to Washington to do? I don't know about that. But
well, the challenge with that mindset is that it does win for them a certain ideology, a certain mindset that says this is the way the country is going to go, but it's not necessarily the way the world is going. And that it's one thing to be conservative. I want to conserve something. It's almost like the rollback of EPA. We're not going to conserve the environment. We're just looking out for what a 1 or 2 or 5 special interests are those are more valuable than the environment, and the value called conservatism is not even being used. So let's talk about how Purchasing Truth works to or has an impact on once the identity is purchased, you got to stay with it. You've got to double down. You've got to, it's the sunken cost fallacy. It's I am going to double down on the bet. I am going to triple down on the bet. I'm going to deny the truth.
So no, I wasn't trying to get a foreign leader to investigate something for me personally in exchange for the foreign aid that Congress appropriated, the call was perfect.
Yeah, I'm going, just double down on me, because what I've done is right up to this point, and I did another right thing here. And this right thing I did, and the way I did it, was the right thing to do because I'm on your team. You know, it's sort of like, playing 12 guys on the field and the ref not catching it, or the ref pointing it out, and then the person runs off the field and says, "Why was it on the field?"
Right. Yeah.
So it's really it's really unsettling, because the obstruction that takes place is the obstruction of what the ethic is, not necessarily whether or not the thing was fit into the criminal category, but it clearly broke the law. The way it was handled, the way it was set up, the way it was executed is not in alignment with what an ethical government would do. It's closer to, well, it's not written in law and there's no punishment written for this crime. See, when there's no punishment written for it, so we're like, well, you caught me, but since there's no punishment, then there's no crime. There's no written punishment. If a president or people that he asked to do things, there's no crime written for there's no punishment written for Rudy Giuliani. So therefore, how do we convict him and how do we try him? Because there's no crime, anyway. So, but he's got.
I think there are crimes that Rudy Giuliani will end up facing, not all that different from Oliver North facing crimes in the 1980s. It just happens before Congress and not the FBI or the CIA or your local law enforcement. I mean, I think eventually,
But most of the public doesn't see that. They don't see that the Congress is a law enforcing body, even though they're a law writing body. They don't see that there's some power there, because the mindset is not inclusive like that. They see, that a policeman can arrest you. They are used to that because that's what policemen do. They see how that works, so regrettably, they know what a judge is.
Sure.
The most of the public is, but they don't think of the Congress can do something about something that's legal or not. They never see that happen. So because they don't see it happen, they don't think it's real.
It's so rarely needed. What's to me somewhat ironic is that you have so many people in business and in entertainment being held accountable for things that breach an ethical standard.
Right.
All the time we see this. I mean, the CEO of McDonald's just had to step down because the leader of a public company, so a different standard. You have shareholders to answer to and public perception to deal with, that he has to step down because of an inappropriate relationship with somebody else, a worker at McDonald's, corporate level. You see this sort of thing all the time, and yet, and even let's go back to Billy Bush, Access Hollywood reporter, NBC reporter, who was the casualty of Trump's off-camera, mention of how he, thinks he could treat women, to put it nicely.
Right.
And Billy Bush loses his job and has all sorts of consequences, and we elect the guy who actually said it president
and set it up. That's right. Yep.
And so it does seem like, if you're at a lower level below the president of the United States in government, or you're somebody who is in business, there are more real consequences, or have been anyway, more real consequences than there are for the president of the United States. And it seems the only mechanism that exists to try to hold him accountable is impeachment, or waiting until 2020. And if the American people decide to vote him out, right? Only one of those two things.
Yeah, I know. It's really unsettling is that, at last, sir, don't you have any shame of that? And the answer is no, no, I don't. I get to do what I want because this is what I've been brought up on. This is what I've taught on. Is I am strength. I am strength in denial of this, and it's getting worse. I mean, it's getting more challenging to watch the spin. It's like, I did that. It's like, you did what? It's really, really hard for us to watch, and having compassion and empathy for the person that's struggling with this. Because, see, one of the hardest part about this podcast, Tom, is that you and I can rant on what is what is happening, and what's happening to this individual, and the impact on the country. But at some point, we've got to get to a place of healing. We've got to get a place to having empathy and compassion for this person that got elected, and empathy and compassionate for the person that's voting for them. The person that's voting for them has invested their vote in this person, because the messaging has been, this other team is wrong and bad, and you are not on this other team. They're wrong and bad because there's been a story that's been crafted around them. That's why they're wrong and bad, because there's a story crafted around them. Those people, you don't like those people. You don't like Bill Clinton. You don't like Hillary Clinton. You don't like them. You just don't like them because they're bad people. Why are they bad people? Well, she let her husband cheat on her. Not the same standard for Melania, but it's she let him do that. But because it's their team, it's because of these Democrats. Well, why are they bad? Well, they allow women to choose how make a difficult decision with their doctor regarding abortion. No, that the abortion's wrong. Well, there are bad people because of that. Yeah, it says it. Well, it doesn't really say it in the Bible, but this is what life is things. And my preacher says it, so my preacher's right. So they're bad. That team is wrong and bad because, see, um, it's it's having compassion for a person that has a value that is not in alignment with our value, or another value of freedom of choice. And that's where the identity is swallowing up truth.
Well, that's for the people. I agree that the team identity, that's what's happening for, the people of the United States. But you see these politicians now completely abandoning their own core values from what they've done in the past, what they've said in the past, all to try to make excuses for and to preserve this president remaining in office. And I mean, nobody's challenging him. That his views are so far different from what any of theirs are. They're abandoning their own and being demonstrated as hypocrites in what they say on a daily basis, all to, you know, all to identify with this guy who actually I think they're also afraid of, because he'll turn on you in a moment and torch you if you don't abandon your beliefs and line up with him. I threw a lot in there. I know.
Yeah, but it's okay, because the team identity and the team loyalty, it goes a little more like this. the opposing team quarterback throws the ball out, and your team's guy causes pass interference, but it's close.
Okay.
It's pass interference. So the guy clearly hit the guy. It's pass interference. The mind makes up a belief that it's okay if the ref doesn't call it.
Right.
Because, too bad, that's a part of the game. It just happened to the New Orleans Saints with the Rams this last year, where
Right.
there was clear pass interference.
Oh,
The ref clearly did not call it, and the Rams still went. And the other team says, that's the game. This is what's happening. They keep doing pass interference. There's no ref to call them on it. And the team is going, there's no ref. It was not called. It's not that. Meanwhile, you're going like, yes, it is that. They're going like, no, it's not that. It's not pass interference. There's no call. We're going to move on.
Well,
they just keep moving on to go to the election.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden we got to wait for the Super Bowl to call the right play. It's like, and then finally, it's so blatant and clear. And then even though, Nancy says, this is too blatant and clear, the public is not understanding the Mueller report. They don't understand the nuance between ethics and values. The public is not with us on this. They don't believe the ethics. They're giving their team is giving this guy a pass. I'm calling them on it, and it's still not working. We're calling them on it. We're showing that they broke this rule, and it is a cross the line.
But doesn't that line keeps moving? Or I guess that's the truth that's being purchased, isn't it?
Right.
The line, the Republicans right now are purchasing that truth and trying to move the line. A great example is a Latin phrase, quid pro quo. Now, in the history of American politics, or modern history, I'll say, 20th century to today, a quid pro quo has been equated with being bad, that you are actually, and I do actually have to say, Bill, I think there are examples of legitimate and for real quid pro quos in politics and in life. It's like, hey, we're going to negotiate. We'll do this, you do that, fine. But when in American politics, it's been seen as, well, you cannot do that for personal gain. You cannot, there are things that are out of bounds. And so the Republicans have very cleverly been, in the very beginning, well, I don't think there's any quid pro quo. I don't see evidence of that. And they've moved now from there's no evidence of that to, well, there's nothing wrong. Some quid pro quos are okay. Now all the way to the point of, well, there's nothing wrong with a quid pro quo. And I mean, it may not be ideal, but I don't think it rises to the level of impeachment. So, I mean, they're trying to make quid pro quo acceptable to the point where I think the vast majority of the American public does not understand quid pro quo, what it really means. And the definition is becoming less toxic, less bad, more sort of meh.
There's people are in jail right now. People are in jail right now for obstruction. They're in a jail right now for making these kinds of deals, this quid pro quo deal. See, the ethic is, here's what fairness is. That's the ethic. I am fair, and you're not doing this because it's a deal. You're doing this because it's in your interest. That's why you're doing it, is because it's the right thing to do. Not because you're making a deal and I'm holding something back for you to do it.
Right.
That is an adult mindset. A fairness mindset for a 10-year-old is, if you do this, you get that. I am making a binary choice, and that's what fairness looks like. And I'm not doing anything for you unless you do something for me. Instead of what's best. What's best is, there's a country. There were some rules set up around this country, and this other country invaded this country because it wanted to, because it was able to show strength by invading this country, and created some good reasons for their public not to do anything to fight this other country coming into this. Meanwhile, American ethics said, listen, you're invading this country. This country wants weapons. They're a country that is asking for our support. We are fighting for their values. Now we're not. We're not fighting for their values. Well, no, we're not fighting for the values of Syrians. We're not fighting for the values of Kurds. We're not fighting for the value of Ukrainians. No, it's not our business to fight for values anymore. It's not our business to advocate democracy. We're just going to keep democracy for ourselves. We're not going to promote it worldwide. We're not going to be advocates for freedom of speech or standing up for what ethic or a value is. We're not doing that anymore. It's like, what? We're not doing that? We've been doing this for 200 years. What do you mean we're not doing it anymore? So that's one of the trouble with an identity is the why we're struggling so much is the team identity is that my team gets to break the rules. I get to, as a part of my team, get to agree that that's okay to do because my team says it is, and I get to go to the Super Bowl and you don't, because my team is changing the rules, ignoring the rules, not paying attention to the rules. No one's calling us on it. And if somebody does it, it's that. See, the ref in this case is the whistleblower, I guess. The ref called the thing. The whistleblower called this.
That's interesting analogy. I like that. Yeah.
Yeah. The whistleblower was the ref and threw the flag out and says, this is not right. And all of a sudden we're arguing with the ref's call. How do you do that?
Well, not only that, another interesting purchasing of truth that's happening relative to the whistleblower is lately the Republicans are saying the impeachment inquiry, the sanctioned and voted one now that's about to start taking place live and on the House floor, is going to be invalid unless the whistleblower testifies. And I'm like, what? The whole point of the whistleblower law is to protect the identity, the safety, and the job of the whistleblower. The whistleblower does not get outed or need to come testify in public. He just shined a light on a problem that then got investigated. And this isn't another sort of moving of that, I don't know if it's an ethical line, but it's certainly it's legal.
It's like the ref for the rest of his life is going to get yelled at for that bad call. And he did. He got he was coaching a basketball game, reffing a basketball game like a week or two later somewhere, and he showed up in court and they just ripped him.
They let him have it. Yeah.
They let him have it, and are we going to yell at the whistleblower and try to find out, what does this, look at? Their team is going to look at first, what's his politics? Second, what kind of dog food does he feed his dog and make that wrong? I mean, they'll find any reason. The team will find any reason. It's because you look like this, you are this, you are that, and that's the reason why you are that, you are wrong, and you're a bad person for pointing out our guy literally did the thing that's illegal. There's no accountability in team identity, because how could you? You have to admit, hey, your team's guy grabbed the face mask. Your
Right.
team, roughed the passer. Yeah. 20 years ago, that's not a roughing. They don't call that because it was a rough sport back then, and they don't call that, but they call it now, and we are changing the rules so that our best players aren't injured earlier in their career than they need to be. It's rough enough already.
Well, or here's another good quick example, I think, of where the team identity is appropriate. And you see this happen all the time in Major League Baseball when a player is arguing with the home plate umpire about balls and strikes. That was 6 inches outside, and you just called me out. You're a terrible ref. Well, what does the manager of the club do? He always runs out and tries to protect his player.
Right.
Literally stands in between the player and the umpire, trying to prevent him from saying that magic word that's going to get him thrown out of the game, or trying to, just help diffuse the situation. But regardless of what his player does, no matter how bad the act is, the manager is always going to stand behind his player, support his player, try to protect his player. And that's, I think, the best example of team, dynamics.
Identity. Yeah. And he could even even if the call was wrong, the coach comes out and is a strategy and a reality of getting his players fired up. He gets thrown out of the game,
Right.
Because your leader just took one. It took it so that you could play the game. It's like,
right.
And who's gonna be the fall guy for this? It's like the leader, Truman. Truman would say the buck stops here. I think that's his.
I think it is. Yes.
And the buck stops here. But Trump never says the buck stops here. The Trump says the buck stops at Manafort. The buck stops at Flynn. The buck stops is here.
Oh, and do you see the latest person being set up as a fall guy is that the buck may stop with Pence? Did you see this? Trying to start to throw Pence under the bus. So, well, I sent him to Ukraine to negotiate. You can see that, he's trying to preserve himself and setting up the potential that Pence might be a fall guy. But this team dynamic, it makes sense in sports, but there comes, I don't think anybody who watches a sports game and sees that the player was wrong is going to argue that, well, the coach is just doing his job to try to protect him. The fact that he's wrong doesn't really matter. He may still be wrong, but that's not happening in politics here.
Yeah, well, here's what happens. Here's what's happening actually. What's really, well, it's happening, but this is the more of the overview. The way to think about this is more of the overview. Tom, if you came and you went every week, you watched a football game where the rules weren't followed all the way, every game there was some blatant, the home team was always allowed to win more than the visiting team, that the refs were ignoring calls or making bad calls to tilt the scale. Wouldn't you stop believing in the game?
Absolutely, I would stop believing the game. Yes.
Well, we're stop believing. What's happening with this team dynamic is we're stopping it's causing people to stop believe in America, the concept of America, where there's a fairness piece that's going on here. And because because of the way, I'm going to just put it in the field of time, over the last 40 years, it's been, we're going to gerrymander this. We're going to allow this person to get away with it. We are going to give this person a pardon. No, we're going to give them a pardon. They made the mistake. They sat in court. We're not commuting their sentence. We're not. We're not. That person was convicted. So if you think about somebody that was a fall guy, well, let's pick Scooter Libby, I guess, with the
Sure, why not?
He went to jail.
Yeah, for outing Valerie Plame in the
Plame,
newspaper. Yeah,
that's right. And then Trump pardons him because that's what happened.
Did Trump pardon him or
commuted his sentence?
Well, I thought George W. Bush ended up doing that. No. Oh, maybe I'm thinking of another one. Okay.
Yeah. Right. So commuted his sentence. So, well, Valerie's running for, a senator.
Yeah. She's running for Congress in New Mexico, I believe.
Yeah. Right. So she's going like, wait a minute. I'm an ethics and integrity gal. You people are not ethics and integrity people. I'm running because this is what America means to me, and this is what I've done for America. And, Trump, I'm coming for you, basically.
Yeah.
Because, it's like, no and no. I'm not standing for this.
I mean, it's really, really disconcerting that the president has found a way to purchase truth, and so has his team, to the point where he's trying to escape accountability for his actions. The whistleblower, I liked your analogy that he's like the ref. Now, the difference is in the NFC Championship game last year with the Rams and the Saints, they didn't have the rule that they could review pass interference in replay. But to sort of stretch this analogy a little further, it seems like, well, Congress does have the ability to review this, replay it, so to speak, and decide if there was a offense committed here worthy of removing the president. And it's called the Congress and impeachment. This is our review of that whistleblower complaint and the calling him out on, hey, this is not okay to withhold $400 million in aid that Congress voted on until you get a political favor.
Yeah. When tea politics goes this way, when we leave ethics and values behind, what winds up happening, you're allowed to individualize, demonize, pick somebody that is against your team, and you make that person the wrong person instead of the mistake that was made, the crime or the ethics or line that was broken, and you get to make that a problem. Dick Cheney and Rumsfeld, none of them did any jail time because, well, they were just playing for their team, and they just made their calls based on what they thought their team / America / their private interests would like, and how about that, right? It's like,
yeah.
It's like we're these big entities that you can't touch. And, Trump is just pushing that to the next, level of you can't touch me over here. And, no one's going to jail for this. And, they were just playing by the rules, and what rules? Those rules don't apply to me,
Well, so we've had a couple interesting things happen on this issue that it seems, well, one of them, I want to give a quick example that I think it illuminates what you're saying here today, Bill, is that, the ethics line keeps moving. And that first one is Rand Paul, who was interviewed on one of the weekend news programs, who was trying to say that, well, Trump just needs to be treated fairly, the same way we've treated other people. And I don't see any difference between Trump withholding that aid for an investigation into corruption and what Joe Biden did as vice president in, negotiating with the government of the Ukraine to get rid of this prosecutor who was thought to be corrupt, and equating those two as the same thing when, I mean, they got news for everybody out there. I mean, Biden was executing U.S. foreign policy through the State Department, sanctioned everything above board, and everybody knew. And Trump is trying to make a secret deal and use language that I think the Democrats could help relabel quid pro quo to bribery.
Right.
And then that would start to change the messaging a little bit.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, it looks like, I mean, you're almost, it's when when it starts shifting to a criminal term like, bribery, away from the Latin phrase quid pro quo, what winds up happening is this is what a mob boss does. But everybody's been hesitating to call him a mob boss and a deal maker like that, and this person, and they weren't wrong by, and from his mindset, this is a perfect call. I've been bribing people my entire life. I've been using this strategy for forever. There's something we'd like for you to do. And, he's been white knuckling and arm twisting and almost breaking arms by stealing from others, by doing this tactic. It's the deal always gets worse for the receiver when you're in a relationship with this type of person, because they keep moving the line greater and greater in their deal until you say, finally, I'm not dealing with this person, but they've already taken you for X, Y, and Z.
Yeah, and I think, Bill, you and I know this happens in business all the time. It certainly does, but that's in business. And as other business owners, other companies have the choice to not do business with people like that if we don't want to. If their actions are not in alignment with our values and ethics, you can stop doing business with them. But in the government situation, I mean, this is a different environment with a different set of rules, and the president just has not figured that out.
Well, there's nothing to figure out when your habit brain is already wired in a way that this is a habit brain. He still thinks he can use his tactics and his strategies and his mindset in government, and there's nothing stopping him from doing that. And for 3 years, it's kind of been true. There's nobody even there, because the ref, we had to wait for a ref in private, because that whistleblower, if in awareness, it's like, I think, and now I'm kind of getting to it. It's like, well, if you bring out the whistleblower, well, the same thing will happen to what happened with Judge Kavanaugh. The same thing with that woman coming forward.
With Christine Blasey Ford,
yeah,
is that they'll make him, the whistleblower, the villain, the enemy,
and the process, and the process is like, they were like, the Democrats, you've hijacked this, and it's another thing that Hillary has done. It's like, Hillary, how did Hillary get in the middle of this? There's this woman who testified, and you're going to make it about Hillary? At that moment, the entire group of Democrats needed to walk out of that room and saying, this is a job interview. You do not think, and we are not going to listen to another word you say. They needed to get up and walk out of that room. And it's like, you guys vote for him. You vote for him without us here. You vote for him because we're not even voting. We're not even going to honor this person that just did that in this room. This is not the temperament of a judge. All they had to do is stay out of the room.
Yeah.
Stay out. Don't vote. It's like, go ahead. You listen, everybody, you have the votes. You have 9 votes. We cannot stop you from voting in, but we're not voting this guy, this character in. And the message would have risen to the standard of what it's like to cross an ethical line. It's like, this is what an ethical line looks like. We are not even listening to you. We are not coming back into the chamber. Find someone new. Find somebody new. Not him. Find someone new. And we know you're going to pick somebody conservative. Find someone new. Because what he just did is a path that we cannot do. Do not go back. Well, it's really challenging. It's like really good parenting when a parent says to, a kid, you're not liking this because your version of fairness is not taking place, but this is more of a lesson that you don't get your version of fairness at the expense of myself or at the expense of another person. And really good parents have to kind of suffer through that and go like, no, I'm not taking that. You have to learn this ethical line because this is what it looks like.
Right.
So
Well, and I wonder, are we going to see enough? And this obviously remains to be seen. We'll be talking about it in future episodes, I'm sure. It remains to be seen if enough of the witnesses being called to testify in front of the impeachment inquiry are going to, not only tell the truth, I certainly hope they do tell the truth, regardless of the outcome, but if they, I think it makes it harder for them to just be on the team and to support the team when they're testifying under oath in front of Congress. And let's take the Ambassador Sondland, for example, who he testified initially, I didn't remember any kind of mention of a quid pro quo. I don't remember that there was a condition on the leader of Ukraine making a statement about investigating the Bidens or about, getting a meeting with the president. And then after his private deposition testimony, he walked it back, right? He came back and submitted a deposition, I think, some sworn document to Congress saying, hey, I've had further recollection and I heard some of the others' testimony. And I do seem to recall there was some discussion of this at some point.
right.
So he's changing his story under the potential weight and the gravity of this whole process. Would you agree?
Yeah, he is. He's changing. He's changing his story. He's saying, I'm watching these other guys go to jail, and I don't want to go to jail for this. I'm going to take a deal this way because not only am I not going to get anywhere here, there's this guy is not worth fighting for, and this situation is not worth fighting for, and it's not going away. And I'm in the middle of this. I need to get some cover, because if I stay right in this same spot and I'm getting called back to testify again, I better not do that, and as soon as he did the rollback and the walk back and the resubmitting of the new testimony, they started doing the same thing with Blasey. They did to Blasey Ford with him. You go like, well, it's because of this, and he's not really. Gosh, the Democrats might have got to him. No Democrat that's getting to him. It's the law that's getting to them. It's the prospect of going to jail that might be getting.
That's the thing I think it is too. I mean, here is a private citizen, never been in government and politics before, donated $1 million to Trump's campaign and got rewarded with a foreign post for it. And that kind of thing happens all the time. I'm not saying that that's, that there's anything necessarily wrong with that. It may not be the best person to choose for the job, but that sort of stuff happens. But this guy's like, I'm not going to risk going to jail. I think he's seeing the weight of history and looking back at Watergate and how many of those people that testified and were not truthful ended up going to jail.
Yeah.
That he doesn't want to be another one of them.
Well, the long arm of the law doesn't work if you start breaking it early. So like with the Kavanaugh experience, it's like the long arm of the law, and the same with Clarence Thomas. It never got to those guys.
No.
It's not getting to those guys because they are the law. And there's no recourse for somebody that was a teenage boy that did something to a teenage girl in this party, and then wait a minute, oh yeah, he also was a college boy that did that. Oh well, we'll give him a pass for that. Oh, he did another thing because he was that. It's that kind of character that then says no, he's really this kind of character, he's not this kind of character. But the problem is, the problem with team identity and purchasing truth is he's never been like that. That's not the person that he is. Instead of him going like, yeah, I was the person, I liked beer, but he just said I like beer. He didn't say I did crappy things when I drank too much beer.
Right.
Most college students, I did some things I've kind of grown past right now, and I'm not that same guy, and my record kind of shows that I'm not that same guy, and I was once that guy, but I'm not that guy now, you know, and this could have happened, but I'm not that guy. See, he didn't
Wouldn't
say any of that.
No, but that would have taken a whole lot of wind out of the sails of the opposition, wouldn't it? He would have purchased truth right back for himself.
Yeah, instead of denying the truth about it and wrecking the it's not in alignment with respect for the honor of being a a judge
Right.
to do shit like that. I mean, to do crap like that, to stand in that space, just not in that spot. So it's really, really hard to talk about the purchasing truth part of this when that the line between ethics and criminality keeps getting collapsed like that, because the team identity is going like, well, it's okay because our team did it. It's like, no, it's not. It's not okay because your team did it.
And yeah, it just bothers me. And I think we set it up early on. I mean, it really bothers me that personally, and I don't know why this matters, but that, there are double standards when it comes to ethics, in our political
Very surprising
discourse. And that, I think that is an example of purchasing truth, that very frustrating. And anyway, there's so much more to come on this, I know, with lots of testimony yet to happen in the House. And
there is. Well, I think the next thing that we could take a look at, Tom, too, because there is the impact on team identity is going to be seen and reverberate, for a while, because the vision of America has been lost, of what America is standing for. So returning to what the vision is going to look like, is that, well, I guess we can do that. And I guess we can start doing it this way, but we're going to look like a different country if we go down this path. Do we really want to go down this path? And that'll prevent us from taking the high road with other countries who do things like this. And do we want to go down this path and still stay in this mindset, of team identity and us versus them? And that's great when you're cheering for somebody, but are you going to follow the rules? Oh, we're not following the rules. So why are we watching the game then? Why? And the mental degradation of what America stands for is actually in jeopardy right now.
wow, that's a great way to sort of cap this episode, Bill. Thank you for that. That's very helpful. And you're right. We're going to be arguing over a lot of details, and there's going to be a lot of purchase trying to be true. Sorry, I'm going to restate that. There's going to be a lot of truth trying to be purchased and then trying to purchase it back. And
that's right.
It may accomplish some things that are good. It may accomplish some things that are a little scary honesty for America. But the reality is we are going to have to get to a point of self-reflection and who are we as a country and how do we want to be going forward.
Yeah, that's really where we're up to next. It can't just be whose team's in charge and has the most votes. We can't keep doing it that way.
Okay.
Yeah, more to come.
All right. Thanks so much, Bill.
Thank you for listening to this Purchasing Truth podcast. We trust that you have enjoyed this engaging and thought-provoking conversation. Our hope is that you've received value, found clarity, and broadened your truth perspective in this episode. If you did, leave us a review or visit our website, purchasingtruth.com. Join us again for another informative and content-rich discussion here at the Purchasing Truth podcast. Don't just accept whatever information comes your way. Join the discussion. Discover your own voice. Purchase your own truth.